I'm going to take a look now at slide 11. And this you also have as part of your packet there. You'll have this original research study, which is kind of a composite, a summary study about this idea of synchrony, which is following, it's tracking kind of that mother-baby, mother-infant co-regulation, that ability to co-regulate right brain to right brain. So it's not a conscious choice in decision making and analysis. We don't use any of that kind of thing. It's, you know, pre-verbal. We don't use a lot of language with it, but we use kind of an intuitive, unconscious connection to mother to child that helps download really those neural circuits of secure attachment and homeostatic circuits. And so the synchrony study is taking a look at, I got to put my glasses on because I can't see down there, but it's kind of looking at, they're tracking gaze, so that's that eye contact, mother and child. They're tracking arousal levels, so is the mother kind of mirroring the infant or baby? What we know is that from Alan Shore's work is that if the baby's at a 1, you know, if baby goes into joy, it feels joy. If the caregiver mirrors that joy, and that's the arousal synchrony, then what's downloaded is wires of secure attachment, meaning it's safe to be in a 1, it's safe to be in my joy. Alan Shore's work suggests that when there's missynchrony, when that synchrony is off and the baby's in their joy and it doesn't get modeled, the result is affectively is a sense of shame. And what we know is basically it's creating those allostatic circuits. The stress response gets triggered. And what's downloaded are those unreasonable expectations of those survival circuits. So this idea of synchrony is very important for creating, it's kind of like priming the brain for homeostasis and balance, and the ability to self-regulate. This is looking at vagal tone, and of course what we know about vagal tone, you'll learn a lot more about this over time, but what we know about vagal tone, it's really the ability for our heart rate, it's very unconscious, it's part of our brainstem, you know, our vagus nerve to modulate our heart rate based on whatever we're experiencing. So it's our ability to self-regulate in stress. We talk about the vagal brake being that when the vagal brake is on, it means that we have that higher level of vagal tone where we aren't necessarily going to be going into the stress response through all the time, you know, whenever there's a slight stressor. So what we know is when an infant and a mother have this missynchrony for whatever reason, it's going to impact that vagal tone, so it's going to impact that baby's ability to self-regulate, and that's for a lifetime, unless, of course, an intervention happens, or in some way that baby or infant can get rewired for a secure attachment sometime later in life. And of course we have EBT, which helps with that. But so it's a lifetime of having that kind of tendency to hyper-arouse or go to lower stress states, 4 and 5 states, with whatever kind of stressor is happening. Okay, I'm going to move on here to the next slide. The next slide is going to begin to talk about Mary Ainsworth studies, and kind of flipping around here, but we moved from Harry Harlow, which informed John Bowlby, and John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth actually worked together. What Mary Ainsworth did is she created a study, a way of a laboratory experiment, basically, to look at human attachment. And it's called The Strange Situation. Another very, very classic, and you probably read about it or heard about it before. Simply put, in the strange situation, that would be a child, young child, and a mother brought into a room. There's toys in the room. And then a stranger comes into the room, and the mother leaves the room. So what we know is that when you study animals, when you study humans, when that primary caregiver leaves, what happens is the infant goes to a 4 or 5 state stress response, you know, allostasis. So what the researchers were studying is what happens with the child when the mother leaves, and then most importantly, what happens when the mother returns to the room, because the mother only leaves for a few minutes, comes right back. Then they look at reunion behavior is what they call it. And what Mary Ainsworth did is she kind of classified through observational data 3 basic kinds of attachment. And let me check on this slide. Yeah, I think that's it. So let me look at the next slide, which is 13. Those 3 basic patterns of attachment. We'll talk about this some more later. But there's secure attachment, and her study showed about 70% of the sample was securely attached. There's insecure attachment. Those are the 2 major categories. And under insecure attachment, there's avoidant and ambivalent attachment. And I think what Mary Ainsworth suggested, it's so funny because when you read her data and her research, you realize that even though the strange situation is probably the most popular and most well read and most quoted of her studies, she thought that her most important work was the observational research she took back in the home of these mothers and children. Because what she was noticing was how the mother interacts with the child at home was really what was dictating how what came up in the lab setting, whether the child was securely attached or insecurely attached. And it had to do with this idea of responsive parenting, just like what we've been talking about. How attuned is that parent to the child? Does the child lead? Is it a child-led attunement, where the caregiver is kind of checking in and seeing, boy, and again, this doesn't take a lot of thought. This is kind of an unconscious, built into our wiring, kind of checking in to see what the child is feeling, what the child might need. That's considered to be the responsive caregiving. Then responsive caregiving led to secure attachment. And of course, this is key. I probably want to stop here and just mention EBT, because in essence, you can kind of see now why we're rewiring for secure attachment. We're learning, in essence, to be that kind of responsive parent to ourselves, checking in with ourselves to see how we're feeling, what we need, to determine our brain state, to see where we are in that stress scale, and then respond to it accordingly. And the more we do that, the more we begin to download those wires of homeostasis, those wires of secure attachment. Probably the majority of people that come into our offices, especially people who are wired at 3.5 or lower as their emotional set point when they come in, they're going to have these circuits of insecure attachment. And again, we'll talk in some more detail about that.